Okay. I wanted to thank everyone for joining today. I get the question many times about, because I'm an expert in digital transformation, how does this impact the project manager's job and what the project manager's responsibilities are going forward? So this presentation that I had put together is really around what I call the cloud management office. And really that's where I see the PMO evolving to in the future. So in this presentation, I'll share a perspective as to how I believe that the firm's needs are changing due to the impact of digital technology. And we'll talk about how that traditional PMO is going to evolve to the cloud management office. Now, as you're sitting there and listening to this, you may have questions because your firm that you work for may be at different levels of evolution as they are adopting digital transformation. So if any of the concepts or phrases that I use is something that you have a question on, rather than get lost in the presentation, please, feel free to put forth your question via chat. The reason being, most of the time I found if one person has the question, someone else may as well. So don't feel shy about, chiming in or asking questions so I can go over a little bit more detail on any points that you may need help with. Okay, with that, we'll proceed. So the CMO, what is really the future? So we've seen so much changes in project management offices and the functionality that they perform as of recently, and most of that has been driven by the adoption of digital technologies. So if you think back, a number of years, the focus was always starting out with a good, sound business case. And in order to develop that business case, the project manager would coordinate resources and do a lot of work on their own to really explore, what is the level of effort, what is the scope of the project, and then to try and translate that into a business case that identified the benefits that would be derived as well as all the expenses that would be incurred. And largely because it usually resulted in technology being deployed on-prem, there was a huge part of it around what capital investment would be required in order to support achieving the business case. Now, with the move to cloud, we changed from CapEx or capital expense to OpEx or operating expense. And within that, the whole schedule of authorizations in a company is thrown off because normally the levels had certain levels of approval dollar-wise that they could commit to the company to. But as we're moving to OpEx, they've kind of lost that compass and that whole schedule of approvals and schedule of authorizations that they previously had. Also, beyond infrastructure project management, a lot was done around software development. But, recently with the advent of a lot of new solutions that are available via software as a service, a lot of the internal software development has been curtailed. And what people have done instead is simply gone shopping in the marketplace, find a package that does 80% or more of their requirements, and they've adopted a software as a service offering, and it's much quicker. They've removed the need to do the software development, and as a result, they can be up and running quite quickly. Now, that doesn't mean that software development isn't still done, but the software development that is done has migrated largely to cloud infrastructures. And normally that's done in two ways, first being infrastructure as a service, and the second being platform as a service. So again, all of these are new areas that the project manager must really come up to speed on and be able to be effective in this new environment. So as we're talking about the landscape changing, it's no longer about business cases and governing the capital investment. It's so much more. We have different areas of the company that, marketing and other areas can now go directly to a cloud provider or a software as a service, and they can basically go around the IT group. So this is what's meant by the term shadow IT. And with that going outside of the existing processes, there's that loss of governance that the PMO normally puts in place and delivers on behalf of a firm to control those expenses, where the company's applications and data is going to reside, the cybersecurity, looking at it to be consistent with the corporate architecture. All of that is something that the PMO has to adapt and figure out how to really be that resource organization-wide and firm-wide, including across things like shadow IT. So a large benefit that the PMO has been doing historically has been that governance, and they do so through corporate policies, effective vendor management, and now all of that has to be adjusted in order to cover the new cloud environment for the PMO to truly be effective in functioning as a CMO. So when we say what is a CMO or cloud management office, there are very mission-critical functions that a firm needs to effectively manage in its CSP relationship or with the cloud service provider. And really, that's what I'm advocating, that the CMO be the vehicle to do the stopgap on the change in process and procedures in order to deliver that governance in the new model that the firm finds itself. So that can be everything from managing the relationship with the cloud service provider, but in many cases, we're talking multiple cloud service providers involved in different solutions. And then there's numerous ways to procure the resources from the cloud service provider. There are different options available, from on-demand to reserved instances, etc. There's multiple pricing scenarios. Applications will consume resources at different rates depending on the different cloud service providers. When you create these instances, they have to be tagged so you understand which groups internally the resources in the cloud belong to in order to enable showback and chargeback for the cloud resources. The users want to understand, the actions that they can take to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of their use of cloud so that they can have more control over their billing, and without that tagging, they don't have that capability. And then business continuity planning, disaster recovery, and how to meet all the peak use periods that your organization has are all very significant challenges to balance with, an effective optimization of the utilization of the resources that you've committed to with the cloud service provider. So the project manager, if you thought back to the initial business case and looking at what type of costs would be incurred, they have to do that as well in the cloud environment. And you can see just from these few examples